And welcome back to Iron Sports. So now, concern is growing over the possible impact of the coronavirus on the Olympic Games after new cases in Japan were this week confirmed. And that country's top flight football competition, the J League, was called off until next month. Japan on Thursday also announced it would close all schools nationwide until early April to help control the spread of the virus. Corona, which originated in China and continues to spread. Now, the BBC's Jenny Hill filed this latest report from Japan. Take a look.
I think it gives you an indication of just how concerned the authorities here are about the situation. They're also very concerned, of course, to be seen to be on top of the situation because they've already come under a great deal of criticism over their handling of passengers who became infected on the Diamond Princess cruise ship, which is moored up still just down the coast in the port of Yokohama. The number of cases in Japan is rising. Now, the vast majority, some 700 of them, originated on board the cruise ship, but what's concerning the authorities is the fact that separate cases are now emerging in clusters all over the country, in particular centred in the northern region of Hokkaido. But in addition to that, the authorities now are really troubled by this one particular case, a woman in her 40s who was treated for the virus, discharged from hospital at the start of February, but now it's emerged she's tested positive for the virus again. That will be of concern not just here in Tokyo, but to health experts, of course, all over the world. And the big headache for the Japanese authorities is that in just 5 months' time, Tokyo is due to host the 2020 Olympics. There are banners everywhere saying Tokyo 2020. The authorities insist that their plans, their preparations will continue as normal. But we have heard today from Tokyo's organising committee, its chief executive has said that the torch relay, which should be getting underway in just a few weeks' time, it'll travel all over this country, may well have to be scaled down.
And Jenny, what's the latest you're hearing from South Korea?
Of course, that was Jenny Hill of the BBC. Now, former WADA President Dick Pound, who has been on the IOC since 1978, has said outright cancellation of the Games rather than postponement or relocation would be likely if the disease proves too dangerous for the event, which is scheduled to start on July 24. Let's hear what he has to say.
We are in daily, if not hourly, contact with the World Health Organization and the specialized agencies that work with it to try and make sure we understand what the facts are, what the statistics are, what the tendencies in terms of new cases, morbidity, all of those things that would go into declaring something to be a pandemic rather than simply it's this year's version of the flu. And we don't know that yet. So it's really, really premature to start talking about cancellation or postponement. But that said, it would be irresponsible to ignore the potential that you might have to look at and address those questions.
Of course, that's the former WADA president, Dick Pound, and IOC member. But up to today, the IOC boss and the local organizing committee have stayed away from making any decision. We're joined now on set here on Iron Sports by former president of the Jamaica Olympic Association, Don Anderson, as well as sports medicine practitioner, Dr. Winston Dawes. And they're here to look at the pros and cons of going ahead with the Olympic Games in Japan with the coronavirus still, well, spreading like wildfire, it would seem. All right, Mr. Anderson and Dr. Dawes, welcome back to
Sure.
Iron Sports.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Anderson, in terms of your own thoughts about corona. From what you've read and seen, there's this feeling that it's spreading like wildfire. Is that the kind of feeling you're getting?
Well, first of all, let me just correct the introduction, the way in which you introduced me.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
I was
former
vice president long enough to
right, former vice president of
former
the
vice
Jamaica
president
Olympic
of the Olympic
Association.
Association.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I don't think we have had to, from the Olympic perspective, had to contemplate a disease and illness that is of such magnitude and proportions. It appears to be spreading quite rapidly, and we got probably the worst news today when we heard that a lady who had been in hospital, who had been treated and apparently cured, was reinfected. Now, that's a huge challenge. I think it's a single event, a single occurrence, but I think this spells significant challenges for the authorities who are actually trying to contain this virus.
Dr. Dawes, as Sir Anderson mentions, containment. There's always a move by the relevant authorities to stay away from panicking and to ensure that the public isn't panicking. But is there a cause now for outright panic?
No, let's put it in perspective. The killer viruses like MERS and SARS, which occurred a few years ago, they became infective when the person got sick. This one, you can infect others during the prodromal period, in other words, the period when you yourself are infected versus when you have shown the disease. Mm-hmm. But it tends to be milder than those. And for the vast majority of people, it's a mild disease. You have some people who, at the extremes of life, or who have some other condition like diabetes, arthritis, cancer, etc.,
right,
who are more vulnerable. So that is the problem, the dilemma which we face. The other thing, the thing with the lady who they found the virus again, it may be that her immune system, and we don't know enough about her immune system wasn't strong enough to get rid of the virus. And there was a re-emergence of it after it had supposedly disappeared. They're also saying that with some people that they might do swabs in the throat or the nose, 7 come back negative, and then the 8th comes back positive. The thing about this virus, as far as we knew, it didn't, as far as humans are concerned, it didn't exist 3 months ago.
Right.
So we're actually making the bicycle while riding it, and we're still trying to work out what exactly is happening.
Right. The Olympic Games come up in Japan in July, Don. So the major concern now is, should the games still go ahead? Dick Pound has said, well, they have until at least April to make a final decision on that. Would you, as someone who's been a chef de mission of many Jamaica Olympic teams, do you agree with his stance on that?
I think you have to look at all the factors. One of them clearly is the vast amount of money that was injected into making these games a reality.
Right.
Japan, it is said, spent somewhere in the region of $26 billion
Right.
to put these games on. And that's not counting other costs like television broadcast rights, another $7 billion, and all the other expenses that go into putting on the games like this. You also have over 20,000 athletes who are going to, and officials who are going to be living in the village in a very confined area from 210 countries.
Right.
So it's a huge undertaking. I don't think anything else universally brings so many people together all at once, like the Olympic Games. Where do you go from here with it?
Yes.
You have to take into consideration all those factors. But I believe that the factor that should outweigh anything else, obviously, is the human factor. The cost of putting on the games, obviously, is enormous. And if it had to be moved, had to be cancelled, then it's going to be a tremendous loss to Japan. But I think you have to consider first and foremost what's the welfare and the safety, health-wise, of the people who are likely to be there. And I think that's going to determine the issue.
Dr. Dawes, the measures that we see Japan putting in place, their J-League, their Premier League has been postponed until next month. Schools are out until mid-April to control the virus. So when you see measures like these taking place, how likely does the Olympic Games look?
No. The thing is this, it's not Japan. The crux of the matter is going to be Iran, where they've had, I think, 20 deaths and have reported 200 infections.
But Japan is where the games is.
No.
I know something in
but
Iran.
the thing is this.
That's even more...
No. It's going to have a greater effect because they will be sending people to Japan.
Right.
To infect everybody. Right? The thing is this, that in Iran, they are quoting 20 deaths, I think, and 200 infections, which would put it at 10%.
Right.
whereas everybody's reporting 2% or less.
So those numbers are
So
really,
those numbers, and people
little bit
are
suspect.
scared that the Iranians are hiding something.
Right. But also, let me just chime in quickly. Not just the Iranians. You get the feeling that they're based on the new cases that are popping up in Japan. There's no one in Brazil, so it's
Yes,
coming closer to even Jamaica, because South America is now reporting their first cases. As if you get the feeling that there's a cover-up as to what is the actual truth behind just how contagious and just how serious this virus is.
Well, I think the numbers, they have been relatively honest about it. But going back
Who have
to
been
Iran,
honest? The
going back to Iran,
Chinese?
eh?
The Chinese have been honest? The
No,
Japanese?
no. The Chinese, I think, tried, well, in all fairness to them, it's a new disease, so they didn't pick up that there was something going on. But back to the Iranians, the Deputy Minister of Health came out and said that everything was under control.
And then the next
And
day,
the next day, he
caught
was
it.
infected. And there's a battle going on between the health ministry, who wants to stop Friday prayers, and the religious leaders who want to have it continuing.
Hold that point. Not a battle, but we're going to go to a break and come back and, continue to look at the coronavirus, which is spreading like wildfire and affecting the sporting world. Soon come.